Okay, so, I'd like to call to order the, RTM Redistricting Committee. If we could all stand and face the flag to do the pledge, that would be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Okay, so I don't think we need to do the roll call. I think that's kind of silly, but. No, you know, Right. Okay, so, item number 2 is to consider act upon the minutes, from the organizational meeting held on January 11th. And just for the record, I did not send them out with, the agenda, so I have printed copies and everybody has them in front of them. So I'd like to take a motion to, accept the minutes as they are presented. Karen Wackerman. Second. Karen McCormick. All in favor? Any discussion? Anybody have any issues, changes, or anything? All in favor? Aye. Aye, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so item number 3. I kind of made this one kind of vague a little bit. We all had the PowerPoint. I'm assuming that's what Matt and Steve are going to present now. I know they brought some maps that we requested as well. I thought we could, we could talk about this, have some questions and answers, and do a little bit of a discussion, maybe talk about where we wanted to go and how we wanted to do this and the dates that we're going to set later on. Maybe set some parameters, but let's see where the conversation goes. And so, Matt, Steve, I will leave it up to you. Do you want to we'll turn off the backlights, or is everybody okay with the way it is? Lights off, lights on, what are we going to do? Off. All right, it'll be movie theater style, Yeah, it'll be easier. All right, so, I probably could have mentioned this before the lights went off. There is a very large format map if you want to sort of examine it in some detail. It has all of the current RTM districts, and then the state legislative lines that fall on top of them, which create 17 districts we have now. A little unusual, a couple of them are non-contiguous, but that's what we have. We also have a couple of the slides that have information, one of which the committee requested, which was the current voter registration figures for each of these districts that we have right now, as well as a chart that has sort of the decision parameters for like each of the different district numbers that you may want. I don't know if the group has a consensus about how many districts you want to have or not, but assuming that you want kind of like all of your options in front of you, that chart is there for you. There's also sketch maps, which if you get to the point of wanting to sketch on maps, we have those for you as well. So just a couple of things to start with. If we get a lot, and as registrars, we're sort of all talking amongst ourselves, and we talk to other registrars, and a lot of people are like, why do we have to do this? Like, why can't we just leave the districts the way they are? And the answer is every decade you have a census. You learn how many people live in every geographical unit, block, census tract, town, county, and so forth, and you create all of the representative districts based on those figures. Anyone who's elected as a representative from a district has to be reevaluated to make sure that you are within an acceptable range for what's called one person, one vote rule. So that's a lot of legal precedents about that, mainly coming from the 70s, where they said, okay, how close do the districts have to be? Nationally, what's considered safe for local and state districts is a deviation of not more than 10%. In Fairfield, we formalized that into the charter. You actually can't go over 10%, even if you want to. But that is, generally speaking, what towns and counties and stuff all over the country sort of aim for. Here in Connecticut, so we had the census in April 2020. The figures were published in August of 2021. And our state has a redistricting committee that was supposed to finish their work by the middle of September of 2021. They did not, because they only had like 3 days between the time when they got the final information and when it was due, so they didn't pass it. Redistricting commission then is formed that has 9 members, and they finished the state legislative maps, state rep and state senate, by the end of November. And now those are done, and that's what we're sort of working off of. Congressional maps we expect to have finished this coming week. They've told us which towns are going to be split in those plans, and Fairfield is not among them, so we don't really need to worry about that being a complicating factor in what we do. From there, redistricting sort of commences all over the state. Now, in Connecticut, you have a lot of different forms of local government, and how you have to do redistricting is different depending on how you set it up. So here in Fairfield County, we have a lot of towns where we have one set of voting districts in the state and federal years, and a different set of voting districts in the local year, right? So people have to learn which polling place they vote in odd-numbered years and which ones they vote in even-numbered years. Stamford does that, Norwalk does that, Westport does that, Bridgeport does that, Stratford does that. A lot of towns, larger towns in our county do that. You also have some towns that say, we don't ever want to redistrict. What we're going to do is have a flexible legislative body that reapportions the membership based on our new population figures. So in Greenwich, for example, our voting districts came down to us on clay tablets. We're going to leave them be, but we're going to give this, because this part of town grew, they get an extra RTM representative. And this area over here loses an RTM representative. So they change and get to that sort of 10% balance by changing the number of members, not by changing the boundaries. So all of those things are sort of things that you could do if Fairfield wanted to be the kind of town that different lines in the state year and the local year, we could. I think our voters enjoy going to the same place every year, but that's something that your group could do if you wanted to, and then in the future you wouldn't have to worry about it so soon after the redistricting comes out to have to do a local process. All right, so that is it, I think, for this slide, and I think, Steve, you have the next one.
Yeah. I'm going to give you guys these from the flip out of the starter. You're all familiar with it. Breakdown. Oh, okay, and Howard, one for you too. So I'll just kind of go through this. I just want to say I want to thank Matt a lot because he's really helped me with a lot of this, and what he's doing is really helpful. So in any event, I wish I could read, but I can't. I'll read from up there.
That's my bad.
Oh,
I'll put it back my son then for you, Steve. See my steps anyway. I only did 2 games yesterday, so.
Okay, well, part of this is in section 2.6 in the charter, in the pages I just gave you. After the completion of the census, and number 2, of the United States, and after any reapportionment of the state general assembly district affecting the town, voting districts of the town shall be established by ordinance proposed by a committee of the RTM composed of an equal number of members from each party, such as the population deviation from the largest to the smallest voting district shall not exceed the 10%. So that's right there in it. Again, we have to do that. And the redistricting ordinance adopted by the RTM shall provide for an equal number of members from each district, and to the extent practicable within the constraints of the charter and state general assembly, redistricting shall provide for districts that are located in only one state assembly district. Now, as we all know, that we got districts, and we would if we did this. You guys had these, right?
Right. So by charter, we need to try and get it down to the least amount of.
I'm sorry, what?
So by charter, we need to get it down to the least number of splits possible.
Yeah.
And Matt, your point earlier, we can't look around people because we're required by charter.
Yeah, sure.
So we have to support.
Yeah, but you could say, for example, we want different lines in the state year and the local year, if you want.
That won't meet our charter. That won't meet the charter.
Sure.
Okay, so deviation requires an equal number of members in each RTM district, and that's something you guys work out. The max is 56, as everybody knows, we're at 40 now. And it requires that the districts be located in only one state legislative district to the extent practicable, which we discussed, right? And I don't know how much more do I do in that.
Yeah, I think they have. I also think that they chewed on a lot of this stuff before meeting here with us today. So
yeah. So
next.
Or
Oh.
That's you. No, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, but yeah, I had a note here. One of the things that gets, I had a couple. A couple of things are just a little unusual. The idea that you have to minimize the split districts, that doesn't appear in all of the things that a lot of towns have. And that actually really constrains your ability to kind of draw districts that are fanciful, right? Like you kind of have to work within the boundaries of each state rep district, and you're going to have like one district most likely where you have to split it, an RTM district across two. Now, there's a terminology thing that's, it's sort of hard to pick up, I think, which is that an RTM district is one of the districts from which you guys are elected. A voting district, we usually use them interchangeably, but a voting district is like a district that has the same ballots for local and state legislative, state rep, congressional, and the same polling place. So you could, if you wanted to, establish an RTM district that had two voting districts. If you wanted to have the university have a polling place on it, for example, that's something that you could do. A voting district and an RTM district are not exactly synonymous, and so we've had additional voting districts created, but the RTM districts that we have are still in ordinance, right? Nothing changed the ordinances that were passed last decade. So that's like a little.
Have we ever done that, Matt? Has there ever been a different voting district than an RTM district? I mean, have they ever said?
Well, we always have one split.
Besides the split.
But not in Fairfield.
That's what I meant, okay, so the town has never done that?
Nope. Now, just a couple other things. When people talk about balancing the population, you need to use census population. This year, for the first time, you have a requirement also that incarcerated people be counted at their home addresses. There are 20 in Fairfield, so Fairfield's 729 census blocks with people on them. 20 of those blocks have one extra person, if someone was sent to jail, who used to live there. So those figures are at that website. You could read all about it if you want. I won't sort of draw it out. But those numbers are on this big map and are on all the tools that we have that we use. Now, 9-169 says 90 days. You can't conduct an election within 90 days of having new districts. You have to have districts in place for 90 days before you use them in an election. You guys have sort of discussed your process and kind of what timeline that requires with the RTM rules, so we don't need to draw that out. And we registrars pick the polling places after the districts are established. So we have to set them up at least 1 month prior to the election, and we generally notify people of what the new polling place is going to be. We've put that in our budget for the next fiscal year, but you're not required by law to do that, but just as a voter service measure, we do notify everyone.
And you just notify those that are shifting districts? Is that how that works?
We notify everybody, because once people hear that a postcard went out, they're like, did I change? I didn't get a postcard, so we tell everyone.
And do you do that on a yearly basis for all the elections, or just after the change is made?
We have been doing a sort of annual voter notification mailing, but we would do something before the August primary.
Well, now,
if you guys may do less.
What's the date of the primary?
August 9th.
So it would have to be the 9th, so it would have to be, the RTM would have to vote to approve it at least 90 days before that.
That's my
And that's how it go backwards.
And we can't do primary in one, so if we didn't get it done in time, we would be stuck with what we have now, but we couldn't get that changed for November.
That's right, unless there were no primaries in August, which maybe, I don't know, seems like the parties are trying to sort it out, but.
We'll see.
Wait a minute, can you do that for me again?
If there's no primaries in August, there's nothing saying, there is a law that says you have to have the primaries in the same places as the elections, and that voters have to be able to go to the same place for the primary as the general election. 9438 is the number. But like, if there's no primaries, then that doesn't apply. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting this. Because it's not an RTM year, you could conceivably just have 3 polling locations, correct?
Sure.
So you could conceivably just have, if you live in the 132nd, everyone goes to Ludlow. I'm not suggesting.
No, I'm listening to your, because it never occurred to me.
And if you live in the 134th, everyone could have to go to Mill Hill.
Steve and I couldn't do it, but the RTM could do an ordinance that says that.
for state rep races?
I'm just saying, we only have one plan in our ordinances. You could have a different plan for local years and state years if you wanted to, and you could pass an ordinance that says, we're gonna have 3 big polling places
For state.
for state years.
So in the absence of not having an ordinance, you have to follow.
Okay, so could this committee propose that as an ordinance to the RTM to get it for the, so if the RTM passed an ordinance that said, if this committee proposed an ordinance to the RTM that said, we propose an ordinance that would allow us to do 3 locations, or even if we said 6 polling locations, 2 in each of the 3, and the RTM passed it, then for the primary and for the November, we would do whatever that ordinance was.
You gotta live with whatever you guys do.
But then we could again adopt but then we still have to adopt the RTM districts as a secondary ordinance, right?
Yeah.
Not until June though, of next year, right, that's when you have.
No, we have to file by March.
Right, but that also gives us if we run into, so that's an option for the committee to propose to the RTM as well.
Only if we're desperate.
You're right, exactly, that's all I'm saying, to keep us from doing 17.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. So there is a way out if we needed to, which is just something because it never occurred to me, and I think that's an interesting point to look at.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, the next one is you, Steve, key date.
Key date, okay, this is what 17 looks like as far as, so,
Burn more paper than I do at work.
oh, sorry, it's not this one yet, but hang on to that. Okay, so I handed you guys these, statutes.
You want me to jump slides, or you want me to,
What, say again?
you want me to jump to the slide you handed me?
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, the key dates are what we're talking about, and then, by May, the new districts must be in effect and provide a list for conventions, caucuses, and petition candidates. So that gives us basically all of March and April, or gives you, the RTM, that much time to do it. But, if you look at the, I gave you guys all these, section 413 is the registrars to certify the accuracy of the enrollment list, to candidates circulating primary petition. The registrar of voters who provides an enrollment list of a political party in the municipality, and political subdivision or district to a candidate who will be circulating a primary petition. That's something we may not even have as far as primary, but we probably will. So according to the state, voters must be in the correct voting districts reflecting their new congressional and state legislative districts in either January or March of 2022. So that the town committees can be elected, convention delegation can be assigned by state parties, et cetera. This was completed by our office in December. Questions come up about what the real deadlines are and what the enforcement mechanisms are for not acting. This was tested in 2012 and 14, and while some voters may have standing for a suit, likely nobody is going to make you do anything. Just be aware that we have to run primaries in August and an election in November, and at a certain point, have to go forward with the districts that exist now if no new plan is in place. So if you have to go forward and do the 17, you're gonna have, Dwight's gonna be just one, if we do it just like sports.
Well, to be determined by the registrar, as we.
Right, but these are the existing polling places now.
Yeah, yeah. But if we were to still use them, it'd be 2 districts in, St. Pius, 133rd, 34th. Stratfield would be 1, Woods would be 3, all 3, 132nd, 3rd, and 4th. McKinley would be 2, Holland Hill 2, Ludlow 2, Sherman just 1, and Mill Hill. So that, I just want to put that there so you can see what 17 looks like. Potentially, I mean, again, it's up to the RTM and how you structure it.
So just so I understand, so Dwight, that would be District One, St. Pius would be District Two, in our RTM districts? Are those in that list, are they in that numerical order, 1 through 10?
Yeah, except for this is current, and again, as Matt.
That's all, I'm talking
Yeah.
current, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So these would be the 1 through 10 as they exist now, polling places in the 10 locations that we now have.
Right, that would be the case, right?
And 1 would be at the top and 10 would be at the bottom. Okay.
Okay.
You all done?
The nine, yeah, that's my, yeah, the nine locations.
Four.
4, 5, 6,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right, wait, all right. Oh,
Ward.
well, 3 is Woods.
No, Ward is.
Fairfield Ward is
Ward,
missing.
yeah, sorry about that, Ward, sorry.
So we voted Ward and at Woods?
Yeah,
No.
so District Five votes at Ward,
Right, and
District
Ward,
Six votes at Ward, right, or do I have that mixed up?
Yeah, the new numbers have me totally.
Anyway, Ward is missing out,
So Ward would be,
it's gonna be one.
yeah, Ward would have been just at 133rd.
okay, so Ward is its own district as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
current.
So, just to show you, these are the lines that existed up until this November on the left, current lines on the right, just as an overview of the shape of the district. A portion of the 134th is in Trumbull, and a portion of the 133rd is now in Bridgeport. So we have 2 multi-town districts, but for our purposes, these are the boundaries that we're working with. And these are the changed areas, so you can kind of see, all of these people will have a new state representative, and in a lot of cases, you'll see that the line is sort of chopped across an existing district in a way that is either minor or major. The thing I kind of want to emphasize here is that I know that a lot of the time when you have like town legislative bodies talk about this stuff, they want to keep the district as close to the same as they have been, right? That's an instinct a lot of people have. But once you have like a situation where you see like in the northern part of Southport, right, or the southern edge of Greenfield Hill, you have half an RTM district kind of like there by itself. You're going to have to merge that with another half an RTM district to get to a full population, and that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire map. It's going to be very hard to keep districts from changing very much. You're welcome to try, but I think you'll learn that as you sort of go along, that it's very hard to kind of minimize changes when you have this number of people being switched between different districts. Now, we're going to just cover kind of like what those divisions are really quick, and I think, Steve, you had the first one you wanted to talk about, District 3.
Yeah, well, the main thing with District 3 is that if you were to stay where it is, I would not make any changes. Again, it's gonna be 3 districts. And that, we've already got 2 now, and that gets a little difficult. Luckily, the gym is pretty big there. If we have to go to 3, it gets to be almost, yeah, so that's just basically another point there. And,
Is that a pretty even division of population, green and yellow?
for 3, it would be, this is proposed, right?
No, this is what we have now.
This is what we have now, so yeah, so if you look at Fairfield Woods, and again, sorry about Ward not being there, but it would be all 3 of the districts, and they would be at that voting location.
I know, but Karen's asking how easy it is to flip out of those neighborhoods. Right. That's the problem with all of this, you move one.
Yeah.
The ripple effect, like you said before,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the slide before said that 25% of the population moved state districts.
Yeah.
So, which means that we're gonna have to move probably 12 to 15% of the population, or, okay.
Yeah. And, well, I think it would be more like 50.
Do you think it'll be that high? Okay,
Because every half district needs another half a district to be
got
attached
it,
to it, right?
okay. Right, you got it. And blocks are, how many, are they consistent, a number of people, or are they?
They vary pretty widely.
Okay.
From, 1 or 2 people on a block to the largest, I think, is a little over 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Wait a minute, you have a census block that's 1 or 2 people?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
I had no idea.
you know, you live on the lake, you're the only house on that side of the street, you know.
Okay. I get it.
A couple other examples, you got District 8 here, there's it's split largely along the Mill River, so almost everything, to the west of the Mill River is now in a separate, RTM district from what's east of the Mill River, and most of the population is to the east. District 10 has been, cleaved in half, basically at the Post Road, most of Southport, north of the Post Road is moved into the 134th district. Almost all of District 7 is moved from the 133rd to the 132nd. You have small corners of a couple other districts changing representatives. 1, 4, 5, and 9 are undivided, right? So they are entirely within the same RTM or same state rep district they were in previously. Now you want to talk about the 17, but you already say the stuff you want to say about that. Yeah. Okay. So, and this is on a handout as well up on the desk, and this answers the question of, like, you know, population, census population wise. So this is voters, but like how many voters are in each area and how do they compare generally? I'll say that for the most part, voter population and census population are pretty close proportional, except for the district that has universities in it. Right? So 2 has you know, maybe 1,000 fewer voters because of the Sacred Heart, and 7 has maybe, you know, 1,800 fewer voters than average, just because of that. But you can refer to that sort of at your leisure. Now, the thing that I wanted to, the sort of the meat and potatoes of this is because we have these constraints that come from our charter and come from statute, the process is relatively simple for you. Like, we've kind of done a lot of the figuring it out stuff. To draw the maps, and if you would like, you know, we can do some tonight for fun. You could get working on them for real, whatever you want to do. We're here for you. First step is you choose the number of districts you want, right? And that defines every other decision that you have to undertake, right? So how many people are in the district, how many RTM districts are made out of each state rep district, all of those come from that question of how many districts you want to start with. Once you've chosen your number of districts, you identify what we call a split, right? And the next page will have a chart on it that shows you the size of the split in each district. Now, there are 2 district numbers that you could choose that don't have a split. If you chose to have 15 RTM districts, all RTM districts would fit completely within a state rep district, and there would be no split district whatsoever. You could also do that if you chose 18, right? That just happens to be the way that it works out. Now, you may not want that many districts. That's up to you. But if you have any smaller number of districts than that, you're going to have splits. You pick the area that has splits. And then, once you've chosen that area to sort of say, we're going to have one RTM district that is 90% in one state rep district and has these 6 blocks in another state rep district, you divide the 3 state rep areas that we have in town into a number of equal population RTM districts using, I've made some sketch maps for you. You could do it on the computer, however you want to do it, but you try and ballpark make them the same size. At that point, when you have basically, here's how we would like the district to look, we load it in the computer, tell you how far apart you are from having that perfect 10% deviation at the most. And you can say, oh, we're going to move 2 blocks over here. Oh, we need 150 people in this district. Here's a block that has 150. Let's move that one. So that's like kind of the last step. And at that point, you have your map. Now, I think Steve wanted to say a little bit about the district and split chart.
Can I ask the question?
Oh, sure.
I think I know the answer, but, so for example, if it was a 10-district solution, and there's only 415 we have to move, that doesn't mean it's putting 10 districts. It just means we could come up with 10 districts that would comply with the requirements, if we just move those.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so the math of it, if you want me to sort of get into it a little bit, the 133rd State Rep District has 19,000 Fairfield residents in it. Mm-hmm. The 134th State Rep District has 17,000 Fairfield residents in it. So if you want to divide each of those 2 districts into 3 equal parts, at the end, you're going to have more than 600 difference between a district, an RTM district in District 133 and an RTM district in District 134. That 666 is larger than the 10% that you're allowed to have between the largest and smallest. To get it to the district over here in the 5,800 person district in the 134th are within that 10% deviation, you have to move, 400 voters into an RTM district that's primarily gonna be in the 134th. And then you can have districts that are a 10%.
And then when you pull up the clerk, when you say exactly what, 9.99?
Yeah, well,
Once you actually start to do them, then you'll catch on to how it, yeah, thank you.
So you had some stuff, Steve, that you wanted to talk about the chart.
Yeah, well, again, if you keep it at 10 districts, which I think people in general may or may not range to, because it's pretty much the same. It's only a matter of moving 450, where's that part of the map that shows where?
We have a slide that demonstrates that, and there's a couple of slides.
A couple of slides, you want to just go through?
You want me to skip ahead to it?
Yeah, yeah.
You want me to talk
Yeah.
about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the one thing about this chart, just the number of RTM districts are kind of listed on there. So if you say we want 10 districts or we want 8 districts or whatever it is you want to do, you see the options for how many districts you get, and you also see the number of voting districts you're going to wind up with by making that choice. Once you pick your number of districts, then you have to identify a split. So let's say you wanted 10 districts. You have to find an area along the border of the 2 districts that require the transfer, and find, in the case of 10 districts, an area of not less than 415 people that you can move into an RTM district on the other side. So there's a couple plausible options on the border of the 133rd and the 134th, one of which is this large block that has a big golf course on it. It's got 498 people on it altogether. And those people have been voting in the same place as the people on the other side of the boundary there for some years, so maybe that's an option. There's also another one on the other side of Churchill Road that has 6 blocks that combine to be 466 people altogether. So these numbers are in the computer, very easy to get to on the computer. They're also on this large map. So if you want to look at the map, either the large map or the smaller sketch maps, and say, well, the transfer has to be 415. Let me identify blocks that add up to that. That kind of math is not that hard to kind of do on your own. It's hard to add up hundreds of blocks to get the correct total district numbers, but you can identify these transfer areas pretty quickly. Now, once you have your split area, you try and divide up the remaining area into roughly equal parts. So I did an example using 8. So I found a split for 8 that had 908 people up at the top. And then I said, I just drew these lines really quick. It took me 5 seconds to say, here's 3 districts. Let me try and they look about the same size to me. Let's go forward with that and try and see what we need to do. So they should be 7958, just in this example. And when I actually ran them, turns out that one district was over by about 1,000, another district was under by 750 or so. So you have to try and identify the areas to move people over to make them match, right, to get them to be equal size. And this is just sort of how I solved that problem. But it's really not too challenging to do. Once you have a ballpark idea of what you want, finding out how far you are is really, 10 years ago, the group that did it, was 20 minutes or something to kind of pick which areas they wanted, and it was done. So.
Was it really only 20 minutes, Pam?
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, we were in the conference room at the Board of Ed.
But I just don't remember that part. I remember
you guys went through a lot on the way to get to that point.
I just remember removing the block. I don't remember the first stuff.
Well, they tried to do it all on paper first, so it's very painful, I think.
Oh.
Now, there are, and I remember 10 years ago, the group was, because they had been, the previous committee had thought about it for so long, they're like, well, we really need to know who's got a majority in each of these districts. It's going to be politically problematic for us to go back to our caucus, and if the other party has an advantage or whatever. So, you have a bunch of things that you can kind of look at and consider, right? And you could say, I want to look at where the incumbents are. I don't know if that's allowed or not. I know in the last charge that wasn't allowed. Maybe it is in this one.
No, it's not.
You can look at, neighborhoods. You can say, okay, well, I wanna try and keep this area together, right? Like when Steve and I were working on a draft in the office, he's like, I know that like Southport people kinda wanna stick together in the same area. They don't wanna be voting with these people way up here in the like remotest parts of Greenfield Hill. So, you know the neighborhoods, you say, here, these people are like these people. We wanna have them voting for the same representatives. Compactness is something that I think a lot of, like a map doesn't look good if you have like a weird little shape that like goes a great long distance and connects two large areas together. So just, you'll, I think, intuitively be able to say, this map is good because if a voter looked at it, they don't think that someone's trying to scheme them in some way, right? You can also look at like what the possible polling places are to say, okay, well, if you draw all of the schools in the Jennings, Stratfield, North Stratfield area into one district together, maybe it would be better if you carved one of them out so it could be in the voting district next door to it. What I would suggest is for this kind of stuff, get your map basically to a point where you like it, and then when you say, okay, I need to move 300 people from this to that, and this area is better than that area because this way I get to make this school be in this other district, for example. Like that kind of thing, like is like a good last step, like a finishing process.
Yeah, but just so everybody knows, like I know some people were upset that they were voting out of the district across the street, but that happens because of voter blocks. You move somebody, even like it seems like no big deal, why didn't you capture the other side of Stratfield Road so that we're in district voting through everything on that? So you don't have to have your polling location within the physical boundary of the voting district. That's how that happens. Well, yeah, but the good thing was where we did it, it was literally on the border, so we just couldn't get it in, because then it threw everything off.
Right, so you pick your poison, so.
Yeah, exactly, and we were also we were very, cognizant of trying to keep people in polling locations they were familiar with. You know, we talked about moving from Dwight to Burr, that was important, that's why, Dwight, I kind of felt, my whole thing was trying to look, weren't driving all the way to the east or all the way.
Right, because sometimes the further people drive, the less likely they are to drive, depending on the weather, and
And you guys decide the polling location, but we can think about what makes sense,
Right, we should try and keep it in the back of our mind.
Yeah. And we're, the way that works is the registrars are required to identify a suitable polling place inside of each voting district. And we can agree, if we find that there is no suitable polling place inside a district, to a polling place in an adjacent. So if for example, like just like right now, McKinley School is across the street from District, it's not technically in District.
I didn't even know that.
I
I didn't know that.
The Stratfield School's not in, District 4 either, right? But
We tried, but
But those were the original polling places anyway, so people were used to going there.
that was our thing, we talked about doing, like, going to Holy Family, but we're like, everybody already knows.
Right, it was bad enough that you guys changed numbers, and to change the polling location and the number, then everybody would go crazy,
now,
so.
like we had the most numerous complaints we get are from people who live near Holland Hill who don't get to vote at Holland Hill because they vote in a different state rep district than Holland Hill.
or live near Sherman and have to go to.
Yeah, they don't complain that much to us,
Oh,
people who
okay.
live by Sherman, but
But again, that had nothing to do with any of us, that was
that came
all
on
driven
from the
by the
state.
state.
Right.
Now, once you have your map, and you've agreed on your map, you have to prepare an ordinance. And there are 3 versions of ordinances that are out there. This kind is one we call a map reference ordinance, where you say that a map is on the file that's labeled such and such, and that is the map that we're approving, right? That's how your zoning boards and stuff do it. They don't, incorporate all the language of plans into what they pass. They say, oh, there's a map on file. Stratford has an example of what that language looks like, very easy to copy. I personally would recommend that as a method because it is, when people looking at the map will understand what it is, and you also have no chance of introducing an error in the drafting. So I like that, but there are two other methods that you can have. One is very similar to what we have now, meets and bounds language, where you say, here is the boundary of the district and how it travels through the land of the town. You describe it. It goes from this intersection to that intersection. It goes northwest along this street, so it meets this other street. This is what we have, and you can certainly do it. I will caution you that we have a lot more borders between our state rep districts that travel not along streets but along waterways and things, and describing that in language I think will be very frustrating. But you're welcome to give it a go if you want to keep it the way it was.
We don't do that at engineering. So we did meet about that.
Sure.
We went through all this kind of training, and legally they prefer to.
Sure, up to you.
So
Like I
we
said.
have a map on file, and then it's backed up by engineering.
So we draw the maps, and then engineering creates this, I was gonna say, who creates this?
Someone sit down and with
Okay.
their little map and their little
So-
this.
So this is what the town does and has done over the past,
This is very similar to what we have right now.
okay.
Why is it legally better? Because it literally, like, you can't really look at the map and say exactly where it is. And so when someone says, well, I don't think that's where I am on the map, and it says in there, northwest of blah, 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 you are, you know.
So it's almost longitude and latitude, it's
Yeah.
almost that close.
Yeah, so the whole thing, you could see, we went through trying to figure out what to do, we didn't know how to handle it. You know, we have a whole write-up on the town. And we were, and what Shannon had told us to do was adopt the map and then send it over.
The other thing that is maybe you have to really obsess about this stuff to get into it, but like the census geography is not the same as the maps that the town uses. The town has these terrific maps. They're like, if you want to place a pipe in the ground, they can tell you what's already there within 6 inches. Like that is the standard that they use and why they have it that way. The census geography is not that precise. Like they're referring to geographic references, like things that exist in the world, but they don't necessarily make note of the same features that the town would, right? So they'll say, we're going to go, you know, at the end of this cul-de-sac across to the end of another cul-de-sac, and the town may identify those geographically in a different way than the Census Bureau does. So they may include different houses depending on which one that you use. So that's like a whole world of drama.
Sam, when you guys did that, did you try both ways, or you just tried that?
I have to go back and reread what we did, but I know this whole thing, what came up around the map. I remember we went, and like, we didn't care, honestly. We went, I'd have to go back.
Yeah, just wondering.
Do we know what most towns do?
Most towns do a map reference. But that's because, you know, most towns, there's a very small number of towns that even have town legislative bodies by district. Almost all of them are at large. They're picking districts, and like the registrars are just coming in one day and saying, here are your new districts, and they just, like that's the process in most of these places. So we're definitely in a different world than them.
We don't have to figure it out now, like, we literally, like, our last meeting, we're like.
Right, yeah, it's just once we get everything done, then we take a recommendation from the town on what they recommend, and we go from there. So, I mean, especially if we don't have to,
Yeah.
here's the map, make it whatever.
We don't have to write it, that
Right.
I know.
I wanted to make,
That's
I
good.
just wanted to make sure that you had references to what it looks like in other towns, and that they're living happily with these 3 different ways of doing it. The other way, and New Haven does it this way, the state legislature does it this way for their big plan, is they just reference the actual census block specifically, which has the benefit of being very quick to produce and very precise, but I think a normal person has no access when they look at that to really understand what it is. So that's, you know, that's the other way that you could do it. Now, the last slide is just a couple of comments, just from having done this a few times, both here in Fairfield previously and also with other towns around the state. You know, one thing from last, decade, that's been a big pain in the butt to us is please don't subdivide the university. Be mindful of like, you know, like this area has one address and if you have two districts, it's very hard to administer the election.
And he said they're both now in one state, in their own state.
The state legislature didn't put the Fairfield University in the two state rep districts this time, but, when we were doing our draft maps, we accidentally did it, 'cause we weren't thinking of it. We're like, now we cut the university into it.
What's the problem with doing that, Matt?
The students don't use, like,
Street addresses.
dorm addresses, like street addresses for the dorm.
It's a P.O. box,
So
usually.
you have a list of 1,000 students registered at 1073 North Benson Road, but you have to figure out which 25 of them are eligible to receive the 132nd state rep status.
Oh, and you can't tell.
Right, 'cause
Yeah.
it's not a physical address.
Got it.
Well, it is a physical address, but like Yale uses a P.O. box for everything,
Yeah.
and then they have the postal codes. So the postal code's put on it, and then Campus Mail delivers it to the postal code, so that's bad, so.
Got it. What was the Sacred Heart?
Well, Sacred Heart's in half in Bridgeport, so they have their own problem, but no,
No, but-
Fairfield University, Dolan Hall was drawn into a different state rep district.
Last,
And that's,
yeah,
they
yeah,
have to go
but
to,
that was,
uh,
but you know what, but that was
No, not at the southern end, the northern
The
end.
northern end.
dorm. It's like fancy senior dorm.
yeah, they were the ones that voted in College Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now now Fairfield U is in one state
For now,
representative
yeah.
district, yes. For now?
For now, unless you guys divide it again.
No, I meant,
Okay, got it. So we did that because the state lines were that way.
Yeah.
right, but now the state lines put them each in their own, so we don't have to do
They're
that.
all completely in the 132nd now.
That's right.
Is that what
Yep. Just one thing that I saw from last decade, just, you know, try not to approach it like we've got a Democratic plan and we've got a Republican plan and we're gonna fight and die on this hill that we have.
Yeah.
Once people from that first committee went to their state party and came up with a map that they thought would give them an advantage, they were not able to ever really come back together again. So I would encourage you, I mean, you can do what you want, but I would encourage you to do your work in the room together and just to, you know, keep that spirit going.
I think we've agreed to that.
That was our one, because I helped write that for the most part.
Right.
That was Chris Kimiak and I came in from a very, very split party. And we were just discussing the whole process. We literally did exactly what Matt said. Nobody gave us the map. Everyone's like, I wanna give you the map. I'm like, I don't want your map. I want you to, and we'll.
Right, and that's what I'm hoping that, that's what I'm hoping the four of us will do as well.
And then, whatever, so, you know, and if you were getting screwed out of your district, if you were getting screwed out of your district, that's how.
But it wasn't personal, it's just business.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I sat in on a lot of the meetings prior to yours with Kevin Hopkins, and that was just riffed with partisan politics from the opening gun on that meeting, and they just dug their heels in, and it was really ugly.
Are the state maps, politically, is that sort of the?
Yeah, I mean, the way they approach it and the way they achieve bipartisan consensus on these maps, and they do achieve bipartisan consensus, is that the informal rule, is every incumbent gets a better district, right? You get either more people from your party.
Yeah. That's how these are sort of thick. It is.
No, well, if you want bipartisanship, it's,
No,
that's
it's
the
not
way.
good government, that works for the people. Because that's how
Yeah,
you
that's right.
that's how we got the screwed up line
Last time.
last time. Really, really.
Well, and
Every
truthfully,
company gets what they want.
Yeah, we called it the Kim Fawcett lines.
Well, exactly.
It was the Kim
What
Fawcett
Laura
line.
got for
And-
herself and what Kristen got for herself. I mean, they all, this is what each of them gets, and the
Right.
higher up that you are in the ranking, the better.
Right, and if you look at the map, if you look at the lines they drew now, for our purposes, I think they've made it a whole lot easier for us, based on the way the representative lines are drawn now. Because that Kim Fawcett thing made it awful.
It did really, I won't lie, that made it really.
It made it really hard.
well, it was, it's like you could tell a story about each of the state reps and what they did for them, right? Like, you go back to 2002, and you had the 133rd state rep district was like Brooklawn and Greenfield Hill and Green okay, we're gonna cram all the Democrats in town into this one district, that was, you know, and then she left the seat immediately, so she never even ran in that district. But, like, that you see how these things come about, because you know the people and you know where they lived when the lines were drawn, and if they can't draw you a stronger district, they draw your opponent out. Right, like if it's numerically impossible to do, they say, who's gonna run against you? We'll put them in a different district. But, you know, that, if you want bipartisanship, that's the only thing they can agree to up there. So, but the thing that I wanna say about that is that because that's the way.
They're all about themselves, like each one of them, all of them. I don't mean that in a,
Yeah, sure.
equally across the board, they go up there.
If you go up there, which I got the, Sean McKinney invited me up, I went, well,
Yeah, no, it is.
it's real nice.
Yeah. Well, they don't let me manage the cool part, but, you know, you can tell from a distance. But the thing that I want to emphasize about that, why that's important for us here, is that truthfully, because you hear so much on the news about redistricting and gerrymandering, and they rigged the lines, so this state's going to elect all people from this party or that party. And the truth is that there's very little you here can do within the constraints that you have to put a thumb on the scale, right? The state legislature has already said, you know, all the areas that are going to be favorable to a Republican, we're going to give as many of them to Laura Devlin as we can, right? We're going to draw this map, try and help her, and all the areas that are favorable to the Democrats, they've tried to, like, separate them out for, like, Leeper and McCarthy-Bakey. And, like, you can't change that. And that means that, like, you know, when you get into it and you say, I'm going to divide this state rep district into 3 pieces, you know, I would not get too emotionally invested in, like, where exactly that line falls, because you're going to have roughly the same neighborhoods no matter what, right? So I know that a lot of pressure gets sort of put on you guys, like, that it's going to be the fate of the party rests on you or something, like, on the lines that you draw, but I don't really.
Nobody's told me that.
Okay, good.
Either.
Okay, that's good.
Don't understand it. What we did do, and I don't know that it's going to be possible for registration, is we worked up geography first, but then we did go back in and overlay party affiliation so that we had 3 Democratic districts, 3 Republican districts, and then we had 4 districts that's called districts. So 2 of them lean D and 2 of them and we structured them that way. Literally, when we got down to census blocks, it's like, well, if you move that one in there, you're making that more Democratic, don't pick that, pull this one. And, you know, and that's how we do that. Now, the voter registration, I don't know, but I would like to look at, you know, when we get down to and because I think that I stand by the redistricting that we did, because look at how close the RTM is. You have a very balanced RTM.
Right, it goes with the ties, right?
Yeah, so there were a couple of years where, you know, we had the majority, but only by a few people, and a couple of years, Democrats had the majority, but only by very few people. We don't have those swings they used to have, but.
38-12.
Yeah.
41-9, that was my third term was 41-9, that was pretty bad.
My personal opinion on that is I don't think that supermajorities are good for anybody.
Right.
So that's my.
And like you said, I don't think with the voter registration the way it is in this
I
town,
don't
there's
know,
gonna
you're
be
wrong.
there's gonna be a supermajority in the districts that we're gonna draw, because
Right.
everything is so close.
We might not be able to do 3, 2, and 2, you know, maybe we can do 2, maybe we can get 2 and 2 and the rest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, but, and I agree, I think it's something we definitely have to take into consideration when we draw the final lines. Because everybody's gonna ask us what we did about that, and we're gonna need to at least show them that we did, and I agree with that.
Now, Steve asked to have a map included in the presentation, which is on this slide, that just shows sort of block by block what the party registration advantage is.
Yeah.
Right, like dark red is everyone's a Republican, dark blue is everyone's a Democrat. You know, light blue is light Democratic advantage, light pink is light Republican advantage. So,
Yeah, that's really helpful, Matt, if you could get a ton of that, that'd be awesome.
yeah, sure. and you can also just in the balancing phase of like, okay, now what do we do to make these, you know, do we want more Democratic blocks or more Republican blocks?
Right.
You can have that.
Yeah,
example.
yeah, we're gonna use that, that'd be great.
But you know, the political economy of the town, I mean, the voter registration is being driven by national politics a lot right now. And I think if you look back, you know, whether it's on like a 5-year horizon or a 20-year horizon or a 50-year horizon, you know, Fairfield had for a long time had a huge Republican majority and also, you know, John Sullivan as the first selectman sort of simultaneously for all those years. Now you have this huge Democratic registration advantage, and you got Brenda Kupchak as the first one. So, like, you know, the political valence is just, in some ways, party registration is not really a great predictor necessarily of what people are going to do in those political.
Right, because they don't,
You do have a lot of unaffiliated, but people.
and people don't pull a party lever anymore either, so I think that has a lot to do with it, because when I first voted, you know, you used to have the little things that go like this, and it was fun. I used to go in with my parents, and they used to let me when I was big enough to reach it, but,
They let you pick which one to pull?
no, they would point to the one that I had on. My parents never, ever, never pulled a party lever, not in my life. My father was a Republican, my mother was a Democrat, and neither one of them ever pulled a party lever in their life. At least that's what they told me. And from when I was old enough to,
You could vote for just a party and it would automatically.
everything, yep.
Literally.
Literally, it was a party lever.
Party line, that's where it.
Yes, exactly.
Do that.
Yes,
Okay.
from the old mechanical machines that you probably still have stashed somewhere, huh?
Well, the men's room at the senior center is portable.
Anytime you wanna visit, go see it.
So,
The last thing, and this is just something I've seen over and over again when working with people with the maps. People really have such a hard time making that first line on it. And so I would say when you start, just be silly about it. Just draw something, anything, and know that your second draft is going to be much better, right? But like making that first mark is the thing that hangs people up for a long time. But if you don't really, if you're not that like precious about sort of what block is in what district, the process start to finish is like an hour to do it. So the less time than we've been talking.
Can I just ask you, Matt, on that one, can you go back to the slide with
The blue and red.
showing the party, colors? You didn't put like the numbers in there, right? That's just streets.
I can't remember. I think we put the total census population on there.
So, that was everyone.
Correct.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
But you don't know it's a population.
right, but we have the call-out sheet that tells us the party affiliation in each district,
Yeah,
so.
You don't,
Right,
it doesn't mean.
yeah, that we have, so we can match that up. Now, Matt, you have these in PDF, I assume, that's what these are?
Yeah, we also printed out, I don't know, a couple dozen. for you,
Right. So,
Can you send me all those handouts
Yeah. Other than these, sketch maps, they're in the presentation, but yeah.
This, like, that's in the presentation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, everything's in there except for the one slide, right?
Yeah, the sketch.
Right. All right, now, when you say sketch maps, you mean literally take this and draw lines on it?
Yeah.
Literally?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you wanna practice a little bit now,
Yeah,
or
I
you
wanna
guys wanna
practice
go
'cause
home?
I'm nervous.
No.
I'm not nervous.
Well, I just wanna make sure that, you know, we still have to set dates and other stuff. I don't mind if you guys wanna sit down and start to get into this now. So tell me what you wanna do.
Well, I don't wanna get into it now, but if you wanna show everybody, Matt, how it all works, you have the computer program right there.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm
That would be cool.
trying to see if I can, get it to actually project, because it's, maybe if I quit my, slide presentation program, it'll. Go.
All right, I'm gonna turn the lights off so we can see what
Oh, wow, I really got low resolution here now.
Right, that works.
Hey, look, my name's up there.
So Steve and I did just as for him to get a sense of it, a map with the 10 districts, right? He picked as the transfer this area here, kind of on the other side of Churchill, to kind of add in.
Can you explain to me what I'm looking at, because I don't understand what it is.
Okay, I've got two maps up here, and that's probably not very helpful to you. So let me look out here and zoom.
On the right is
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so you have all these layers. Most of them come from the Census Bureau. You have all your streets, your street names. That's what takes a long time to draw, is all the roads. So I'm going to hide the roads right now just to save us a little time. We got the water, because the water makes the map look real pretty. And every block on here has a population number. So when I select a block up here, like in Greenfield Hill, you see over here that I have information about that block. Here's its census block unique identifying number, the GeoID, which is what you would publish if you were going to do a census block plan for your ordinance, how much land, how much water, its latitude and longitude, as well as some other information. So population 100 is the number of people the Census Bureau counted, which is 425. HU 100 is the number of housing units. State legislative district lower and upper, so it's in the 134th and the 28th. Now, 420, what is the number there? The United population is the same as the regular population there, 425. That means that there's no incarcerated people who used to live on that block, but, you know, sometimes it's one or two off. Now, down here, I have, like, number of voters, number of Democratic voters, number of Republican voters. You got 98 Democrats, 92 Republicans, 320 total voters. And Steve and I, Steve chose some lines, we put it on there so we could sort of balance them out. Steve put that in District Y. Now, whenever I talk to people, like legislators and stuff, we had like West Haven in the office the other day doing their math. I'd say always use letters instead of numbers. People have these emotional connections to their district number, and it lets you sort of work on it on an abstract basis without having to be like, that's District 1. It has to stay District 1 because those are District 1 people. You give it a letter, and now it's something different. So that's District Y. And now over here, I've created little functions that add up the numbers for me as I go along. So you can see here the total population is a 60. It's sort of too blurry to read. 61,534. This block that we've selected is, and it's actually not really showing up because I've hidden the selections. Now you can see it in red there. Has a total population of 425, 320 voters, and 98 E's, 92 R's. And if I select a bunch of blocks, it will add them all together for me. Here I am selecting all my blocks. And you can see the numbers there going up. Now I've got 928 voters, 270 D's, 278 R's, total population of 1192. And so if we want to, now that we've gone to the trouble of drawing these districts, just as for instance, I can select all of the areas that Steve made. Let's find all the districts, all the blocks in District A here, and we'll select them. So that is, right. Actually not really using my computer, I'm using my computer at home. So that's weird. So this area here that we've selected has 6494 total population, 4769 voters, 1958 Democrats, 921 Republicans. All right, so this is one plausible RTM district that you could have, and that's its sort of.
And that's because you figured out that you need to have X number of people in the district.
Yeah.
What is the number?
About 6,100, right, roughly?
Yeah, well,
In that,
Oh, it's in here.
Right, 'cause it's about 61,000 people in the town, right? That's what the population divided by 10, so,
Now, because you have to have a 10% deviation, and you have to minimize your split, you have to look at the RTM district and what the ideal population is within each of those three. So like, the 132nd, state rep district has like 23,000 and change people in it.
132nd,
Yeah,
okay.
so they get an extra RTM member, because they have 4,000 more people, or 4 to 6,000 more people than the other district. And then you say, okay, well now, where do they fall, right? And you take that number off the board. You want everything to be, if you could have 10 exactly the same size districts, that would be excellent. But if you look back at what we had 10 years ago, the districts that were in the 134th were over by about like 500.
Really?
Yeah, and on the lower end, the 133rd, all the districts were within an extremely narrow population confine, because to get to that 10% deviation, you had to divide these two exactly right. Right, so you couldn't you couldn't just randomly move one block within that plan without finding something to offset that same something.
So if, say I just start, I make a line or something, I won't really know if that's a legit district unless you're here telling me what the population is.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are on there.
Yeah.
So you
literally do a pen.
But, you know, you look and you'll see what the population centers are. There'll be a couple blocks that are 500 or 600, and you say, okay, I kind of know that this is about a third. And, you know, I'll be there to help you with the fine tuning, but I do think, and again, maybe this group is like much less stressful than we all were stressed out last decade about it all, but, you know, I like, we sort of designed this process so that, like, all the actual decisions can be yours without us being like, here's what you should do, here's the line you should do, you know what I mean? Just because it was such a weird, like, if one of the registrars gave any advice, then, like, the people from the other party wouldn't want to do it. So it's just, like, we were kind of like what's like a no advice way that we can help you without making a decision for you, you know? But, so that's, you know, so I would make a column in this big spreadsheet for whatever plan you wanted, and we would colorize it according to however you wanted, and we would select the areas, and I would say, oh, your District C has 500 people too many. So let's look at the paper and figure out an area that has 500 people that we could take out.
And then you rename it.
Yeah, oh, we'll name them whatever you want.
yeah.
Right. You guys could be creative. You can name them after a zoo animal.
So really what I think the process for the committee then would be, first we decide how many districts we want. And once we do that, then we take your sketch pads and draw some lines that we like. So each one of us draws a set of lines, and then we come back here with that set of drawings, and you put it on the computer for us, and we start looking at them and start moving pieces around. And is that what we're talking about for a process?
Yeah.
So do your homework, come back to class, and then we move it to make it, and if it went the way we would hope it would, we would take care of one section. So, and that's the question I guess I have. So if we got 133 done, can we do 133 on its own, or because some of it's gonna have to move over, really we have to do all 3 state districts at the same time?
If you've chosen a number of districts,
Mm-hmm.
We're at 10.
okay, if that's a consensus,
Yeah.
then step one is identify the split area of 415 or more people. Say, this is the area that we want to have be in an RTM district on the other side of that state rep line, right? So there's 2 really good options, right? So you could sort of pick what you want. You could look at the map and come up with a different one. And once you have that split identified, you could work on any of the maps, any of the state rep lines that you want, right? You're going to divide the 134th into 3 pieces. You're going to divide the 133rd into 3 pieces. You're going to divide the 132nd into 4 pieces.
So this is 3, 134 is 4?
134 is 3.
3 and
132 is 4. And so I think, you know, let me show you what
Okay.
Steve came
So
up with
that
here.
makes more sense to me now, okay.
So the 132nd is getting chopped into 4 RTMs.
That's right.
133rd and the 134th go to street art.
Yes, yeah.
And when you tell me that I need split districts, the split districts, where are those? Those are,
If you have to find an area with 415 people or more on the border of the 133rd and the 134th.
okay, so that's where we have to make the variance for this.
Yeah, and that is,
So we did the arrows, right, Matt?
Right.
yeah, we did that in the presentation, and I think you'll see,
Right, that's that Churchill, that's the golf course area, right, up by Fairchild Wheeler.
and that is on, sorry, I thought it would turn on that one. That boundary is from here to here. This is, boundary where you have to find 134.
That's for 414.
415, what did I say?
We have to take 415 people out of the 33rd, 133rd.
And move them into 132.
No, the 134th.
So we gotta make the move somewhere along this, that's why you drew the line here.
Yeah, okay.
And is that because
Yeah, remind me again, why is that the line?
Because
It's amazing, but I don't.
you cannot achieve a 10% deviation
Okay.
unless you create a split, and the minimum size split is 450. Because when you divide the 133rd into 3 pieces, the average size of that district is gonna be 6,700 people.
So I gotta get one.
And the average size in this district is gonna be 5,800.
And that's the border of the 133rd and the 134th, that's why you're showing that has to come from that area.
Yeah, so just, and it has to come from this side of that area. So this block with the golf course on it
Yeah.
is 490, right? So you could just say that golf course is our split. This area has a couple of blocks to add up to like 4. But, you know, you could say, well, we want to do these people over by Black Rock Turnpike, you know, Woodridge, what's this, the 270, you know, you can get there a bunch of times.
Right.
But it has to be from here to here.
That's right.
Well, it has to be along the border.
Right, along this border line between these two.
So that's the.
It may be easier to see.
So once we do that, then we know that this will be, we will create 3 districts here, 4
So
districts
you're
here.
saying, just geography wise, you could just move the golf course out and you're done. But if we wanted to, you could just carve out this corner that added up to 450.
That's right. And you could find another one further down, but these are just 2 real easy ones.
So if we wanted to, we could take something from like here, you know, all through here and move it this way.
Yeah, and the numbers are a little easier to read on this. You can say, okay, what are the sizes? 85, 107, 80, you know, you could put a couple along the water.
And that was the very first thing we did.
I came in late in the process, so I'm not totally sure.
Like, why do we have to figure that out right now? Because it throws off all the other numbers.
Yeah.
And then we can do 3 districts here, you know, we have the right amount, 3 here. We just work within the black line.
After you do your
After
split,
you
you do
do that.
everything within the block.
I mean, you know, it's, but that helps
Yeah.
narrow it down.
And last time, you don't do it.
I do, it
Oh,
was
yeah,
over here by,
Yep, yep,
Thornhill School.
yeah.
And actually, you changed the split very late in the process, because District 2 had like a 2-vote Democratic advantage, and so the map was picked for Democrats at that point, and so you switched the split from being over here to over here, so that it would have like a 3-vote Republican. Instead, just so on paper, it looked like a 5 and 5. That was like,
Wait,
the
so
split was,
remind me again, to talk me through that one more time.
so the split had been up here by like the reservoir, right?
Okay.
Or the
Yeah, as I say,
reservoir's up here, yeah,
Right.
right. And like, it was not possible to make the map include any more Republicans, because all the block on the border had a Democratic advantage, so any switch you made would lead to a net increase in the number of Democrats. So you had to switch the split to throw this back into the 133rd and then adopt this area off of Hilton Road.
That's where those map overlays for the, yeah, that's where we need the party affiliation.
Yeah, once we have everything drawn.
No, that's why you need it right now.
Before you start moving.
Before you start moving, that's why we need to look at. So if I'm taking this area, what does that really do? Or what am I really moving?
Partisan wise.
Yeah.
You asking that real question now?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm asking that real,
yeah, so-
like,
Oh, you have
like, or,
an
like,
answer
or-
for her, I think.
Because
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily need to go home and draw this myself. I'm perfectly happy, and I don't need to do it by pen and paper again. We just did not have the advantage of the computer. So if we come back to this room on another meeting date, you have the political overlay and show us what all that means. We could come to consensus in this room, with all of us at once.
yeah, well, and I'll say, the PDF that I sent you guys has that in full resolution, just small. So if you zoom it to full size on your computer, you can see every single block, whether it's blue or red. That's, you know, like, you have that, that graphic is already.
Right.
Does it have the numbers on it?
I didn't put, like, and we were talking about what exactly we wanna show them, like, right, like, do we wanna make it deep blue if it's like, only one more?
So is that map that was on with all the colors on it?
Yeah, the blues and reds.
So you're gonna send, so you just said.
Well, you already have it, if you want it separate, I can.
Right, and it's a separate PDF, so we can, right, yes.
Because this is the first step and you wanna make sure that.
Well, if we had
You
it,
can't tell
well,
who you're working with.
well,
You don't
if
have to
we had it change it last time, might as well start the right way this time. Although, I see what he's saying. We got down and then still in the district, realized that wouldn't work. I remember this being a big district too. Until Piers and I finally. Like, literally.
Strike that.
Yeah. Sorry.
So we're all in agreement that we're gonna do 10, so that part is done. So, from there, does anybody have any more questions for Matt and Steve before?
So this was really helpful.
So, I think we need to then, look at calendars to move forward. 'Cause now, is everybody happy with this room?
No.
Okay. Well, the only other problem that we have is if that means we have to go to the other building where there's a mask mandate.
No, there isn't.
Upstairs. Upstairs, there's a mask.
No, there is not.
They started that?
There isn't.
It's not at all.
There's no mask mandate.
Oh, that's your phone. No, I was over there, I took a picture of it, actually. It just,
Even on the second floor.
yeah.
And I would be surprised if that applies at night.
Well, well, it would only apply at night because the conference, I'm sure it's because of the conference room upstairs.
So you're talking about upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs, right, second floor conference room.
Why would that be?
I don't know why.
Never heard any.
No, he said,
Well, you probably have someone in the department who's like, I want people coming around here, you know.
They just put this up with this.
Except they don't own the building, people live down.
That's right in the lobby?
That's on the second floor, it's not on the first
On the
floor.
second-
Oh, you could go on the first floor conference. Which is,
Yeah, that's good.
it's a little bigger.
You mind if I take a picture of this?
take a picture of the picture.
Sure, I can text it to you if you want. I mean,
Yeah, it'll probably,
Need a, fine, okay. No, not, first one.
okay, they got the sign up, that's all.
Where is it posted, do we know?
Yeah, the top
Probably
of the stairs.
top of the stairs is, yeah, I wonder if it's on both ends of the stairs too. All right, so you wanna go over to town hall?
The other room, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Upstairs?
If we're stuck here, we're stuck here.
You could also just do it like before or after your next RTM meeting, so, you know, if you wanna. show up an hour early or stay an hour or two
We
late.
don't do it.
We're not in person in the RTM meetings, we're still, yeah, we're still Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, I can call the First Select Women's Office, talk to Jen and see if we can get the first floor conference room.
It's not there, you know that, right?
Does the first floor conference room work for everybody in Town Hall?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Pam, Karen,
Sorry, what, first floor?
first floor conference room? And so this way, if you don't wanna meet here, this is fine.
Get one of those, that'd be great.
All right,
Are you talking like fairly soon though, right? You're not-
we're talking like, well, we're gonna set the dates now, and I, next week is gonna be a little difficult for me. We have our meeting on Thursday with Parks and Rec, for Districts 1 and 2, and I have a high school basketball game, my last game of the season is next Tuesday.
Are you coach?
No, I ref, I get paid for what I do, so.
I can't meet until March. Sorry.
Oh, come on, it's gotta be
I'm
something.
leaving.
You're leaving for, after this 1 week.
And I literally am stamped up.
You're leaving for work?
I'm gonna be gone.
I thought just for 1 month.
I'm gone for a week, over a 2-week period, and I don't have any, the first date I can meet is March 1st. And I'm away the 5th through the 12th.
The first deadline really is 5/4, right?
What are you guys doing right now?
First is the
Yeah.
one book, one town author. So second or third,
All right, so Karen, how long, you're gone from the 5th to when?
12th.
So could we meet
I can
the
meet,
2nd, 3rd, or 4th?
I can meet the 3rd.
third is good for me. You can do it in 1 week.
All right, well, yeah, but that's, so, and then what night of the week is best for everybody, since, and how often do you want, because what I'd like to do is schedule these meetings all the way out till we think we need them, because it's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to calendar a special. So,
So it looks like the week of March 14th would have to be the next week because.
all right, so March 3rd, so how's, Tuesday the 15th?
It's okay for me.
The 22nd is gonna be probably, or the 21st is probably committee. Do we wanna go back to, I mean, do you wanna schedule these every week,
Yeah. I do.
Karen, Pam?
I can,
Okay,
because when I hit April again, I'm not,
well, I'm hoping we're done by then.
I can do March 20th.
So that would be back-to-backs, that would be Monday for committees and Tuesdays for us. I don't care,
I can do the 29th.
so we'll do, all right, so we'll do the 3rd, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th for March.
Okay.
So let's go on to April. When are we starting budget meetings? So that's later, right?
And it was the first week,
So that would be the week of April 4th that we'd be in the budget meetings.
Yeah.
yeah, but on Wednesday and Thursday, so we could do the 5th.
So April 5th? And then the 12th? The entire week.
I could do the 11th, and I could do the 26th.
So let's do the 11th then. The 11th and then the 26th? Okay.
What was April, it was 4th?
5th,
5th, okay.
11th, and 26th. And we might as well go through May, just to be safe. You all agree with that? I mean, I'm hoping that we're done way before that, but,
I didn't think we could go out that far, so I don't.
well, why don't we do this then?
Done by May 4th?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I would suggest then. If we're in the first, right, we will calendar additional meetings. So we'll set something for the 11th or the 26th of April if we're not close to schedule additional meetings. All right, so let me just do it one more time. So, and all these meetings is 7 o'clock, that work for everybody?
Yep.
Matt and Steve, you guys are good with those dates?
That you want us there, right?
Yes, please. Especially if we're gonna,
Don't make any sense that far out.
all right, so March 3rd, March 15th, March 22nd, then the 29th, April 5th, April 11th, and April 26th. And I'll put on the agenda, at April 11th, we should have a pretty good idea where we are by then. If we need to schedule additional meetings, we'll do it at that time. Everybody in agreement with that? Okay, so can we do this?
Do it again, though, 'cause I'm trying to type them in while you're doing that. So it's,
Well, they'll be in the minutes, Steve, so you can have them, I mean, you'll be able to print the minutes out once they're posted and have them with you, but I can give them to you again if you want.
well,
I mean, yeah, it's up to you.
March, oh, you got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay. 7 PM is good? Okay. First floor conference room, town hall. Yeah, well, I'll talk to Jen tomorrow. Okay, so now I need somebody to make a motion for these dates, please, so we can do this officially and get it in the log.
I move that we establish meeting dates for March 3rd, 15th, 22nd, 29th, April 5th, 11th, 23rd, at 7 p.m.
I need a second, please. Karen Wackerman made the motion, Karen McCormick second. All those in favor? Aye, unanimous. Okay. I only have the one other thing on our agenda for tonight. But before we do that, so did we decide that we were not going to go home and draw maps, that we're gonna come in here and do it on the 3rd?
I don't think the benefit of trying maps is how quality.
That's why, so,
Yeah, Matt, are you available? Are you available probably?
Yeah, unless there's an election happening, I'm like, I don't book stuff more than a week out anyway.
so we'll look at the stuff that we have, and then we'll come to a conclusion here. Well, at least we'll get started on the 3rd and see where we are from there.
I just, got a message from someone from an hour ago, listening, and she could only hear Matt. She couldn't hear the rest of us. I wish I'd seen that.
All right.
And then she also wonders where the slides are, so is that something we could put in the,
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him to send that to us, so we can, it can be posted with the minutes.
Okay.
That other room will be better, because it'll be controlled.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so we have all the dates on the schedule, and we'll just go home and take a look at our stuff and see what we have. Matt, you'll send us the PDF?
Yeah, and I sent the map to you already.
Okay, great. You sent it to me, or you sent it to everybody?
I sent it to you.
Okay, and I'll forward that to all of you.
The distribution point.
That's fine. I will forward it all to you, either tonight or tomorrow. So the last thing I have on the agenda, and I just wanted to make sure, because I know we had talked about it earlier, I would like to ask the RTM, to waive the Rule 32 of the Rules to Regulate. So if we do get an ordinance in place, that the RTM doesn't need, what is technically 3 meetings with LNA and then 2 meetings, I'd like them to waive 32. I'd like to ask the moderator to put that on the February agenda, because based on what we know, if we were to get this done for the April, whatever it is, meeting of the RTM, if we can get this done and signed off on by the 4 of us by the first week of April, then we can get it to the RTM. The RTM can vote on it, and then we'll be all said and done, and it will be in place for this year. So I would like to ask the RTM to waive Rule 32, if you are all in agreement with that. I'm not asking for, I'm gonna request that of the moderator. I just wanted to make sure the committee didn't have any objections. I think, we're all. Okay, so I'll email Mark tomorrow and officially request that to be on the agenda for the February meeting. If there's any other questions or any other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta let the public speak. So I gotta unmute them, and hopefully we can hear them, so. I gotta find my notes. I'll get better at this, I promise.
Is that the new law that passed?
Oh, we always have to have a public speak to a.
For committee, you don't have.
Oh, okay. Do we wanna let the public speak?
And you don't have it on your agenda.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so then, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
8:32. Nice job, everybody. Thank you.